name is Clarissa Santibáñez, and I'm doing this project for Modernity and the Art of Uncanny. The topic I'm going to be discussing today is how women in Europe transition from a more traditional to a more modern perspective through analyzing paintings and artistic movements. This continental phenomenon redefined values of what a woman can be through the 19th and 20th centuries. Very briefly, I'm going to be talking about the traditional woman. She's a housewife who is subordinate to her husband and births his children. These are what you would call the typical gender roles. Greg Buswell states, the traditional view of a woman's role in Victorian society was epitomized in 1854. Ideal of femininity, a loving wife devoted to her husband, a mother devoted to her children. Females are expected to be high on the end of the femininity spectrum, whereas a man is on the extreme masculine spectrum. The woman is supposed to be the caring, patient parent, whereas the man is supposed to be the serious, dominant parent. Financially, women aren't supposed to work. They leave that to their husbands to be the breadwinners. Also, the way women were dressed were to be fully clothed in beautiful, formal dresses. They are taught to have upright posture and manners. We can see this through two paintings of my choice. The first painting I'm going to be analyzing is A Lady with Peacocks in a Garden by Maurice Bartali Stillman in 1896. As this is a personal painting of my choice, it's hard to find a woman painter in these eras. Maurice Stillman does a beautiful job of painting a traditional woman during the Victorian era. As you can see by her fully clothed attire, she doesn't want to reveal anything to you other than that she is a woman. She is very feminine in nature and is very disclosed to the viewer's eyes, as the scenery masks her importance. As from the looks of the village, you can tell there hasn't been any industrialization, so she can't be any type of worker of any sort, other than maybe a maid or some sort of housekeeper. Women were subjected to these types of roles to establish their low place in the gender hierarchy. Upper class and middle class women's choices were limited to marriage and motherhood or spinsterhood. Both choices resulted in domestic dependency. Women were discouraged from being wage earners by the belief that women who earn wages were unnatural, states Susan Creel. A Lady with Peacocks is the exact epitome of the traditional woman. She is easily susceptible to marriage because of her status and fate to become loyal to her husband, bearing his children, also known as womanhood. The next painting I'm going to cover is The Woman in Gold by Gustav Klimt, 1907. As Klimt was known for his controversial works of art, it might be surprising to find out that he started off on a conservative foundation. The passing of his father and brother led him to try a new and more personal, modern style. But before that change, he was part of the Vienna Artists Association, in which they upheld conservative values as well as the idea of censorship. He then painted Emilie Flügge. As seen through the painting, she has an upright posture in a beautiful golden dress. Her hands are in an uncomfortable position where she wears a look of sophistication. As you can see by the dress of Emilie, it conceals her whole body. From the 1830s, women started to adopt the crinoline, a huge bell-shaped skirt that made it virtually impossible to clean a grate or sweep the stairs by tumbling over, says Catherine Hughes. That tradition has still continued to be represented by traditional women. The geometric circles may represent femininity, where she may be respected and acts like a woman. From this, we can infer that she may be dependent on looking for her husband and is ready to be made a housewife and holds motherhood values of starting a family. Next, I'm going to be analyzing the more modern new woman. As time progressed, many began to question these gender roles. Women started to become more curious of their place in society. Many sought independence and a voice. The birth of the new woman was pictured by many artists of the 19th and 20th century, where they gave her a sexualized look or gave her masculine qualities. She was a very controversial topic because men were being challenged by not having a weak figure, and some women didn't like the fact that they were changing the role of dependence on a man. As stated in a book, Sexuality in Austria, marriage is an institution which enables the reproduction of humankind. Example, positive procreation by efficient selection and legally as well as materially protected breeding. Women soon fled from being tied down because the fact that they were being seen as property only gave them more of a reason to be treated not only as a woman but as a human. Also, the fact that women had become part of the working class gave them somewhat financial stability and fought for those rights. There are many movements across Europe where women were advocates for political voice and sexual freedom from being ridiculed. These next two paintings epitomize those exact ideas. The next painting I'm going to be covering is The Apparition by Gustave Moreau, 1874 to 76. The Apparition is one painting that changed the view of women, as Salome is depicted in veiled clothing, but she is still revealing her body, as one Victorian woman would not. She subdues Harold the Great to ultimately get what she wants, the head of her enemy. As John Stokes writes in his article, although she remains a particularly memorable example of the type, Salome has many forerunners among femmes fatales, those demonic females who lead men on, only to drain away their strength. We can conclude that the apparition can be an artistic message of how women are becoming threatening to the power of men and more independent. A movement that represents this transition is symbolism, because paintings before had to be conservative in a sense that no revealing of the body can be shown, but Moreau challenged that idea by symbolizing Salome to be dangerous and seducing. They weren't trying to sugarcoat the female body as pure or angelic. Moreover, strong female figures were the start of changing the perspective of women. One can argue that men had a new vision of women to be seen as a promiscuous enemy as they were gaining their sexual freedom in society. The next painting I'm going to be introducing is Sitting Woman with Legs Drawn Up by Schiele, 1917. Being in the Expressionist movement, Sitting Woman with Legs Drawn Up is one of the many artworks that can depict a sense of the new woman. Drifting away from formal dresses, the woman has on ragged clothes which alter the sense of beauty that a woman is always supposed to have. Dress appropriately and be appealing to the public. Her clothes also show what traditionalists see as exposure, as her shirt doesn't fully cover her shoulders. Her posture might be one of the more controversial characteristics, in which her head is resting on her knee. While she is hugging it with her legs open, her back is bent and relaxed. The background also plays an important role as it is blank. This lets the viewer focus on the main subject, the woman, who is really making a statement of, I am who I am and nothing is going to change me. From the way she is painted, you can easily tell her relationship status. She is young and single. In the 19th century, many people used it more widely to refer to women who were living with men outside marriage, or women who had illegitimate children, or women who perhaps had relationships with men, but for pleasure rather than money, says Judith Hughes as she talks about the word prostitution. The word itself has come to evolve to scorn women on their sexual independence, which is a problem we have in society today because women shouldn't be put as a negative image, and furthermore embrace who they are as a person, living life just as a man would. See, this transition was a huge step for women. The way they were viewed in the 19th century and before has evolved to change our perspective and still challenges us today. We come to think of being a woman as a feminine gender, but so many drastic changes were and still are introduced to prove that there's a spectrum of what a woman can be. Artists like Schiele and Moreau are only a taste of what revolutionized the epitome of a woman. Sally Shuttleworth states, a passionate plea for women to be allowed to use their talents and not to be confined to the home making puddings and knitting stockings, playing on the piano and embroidering bags. And furthermore, as stated by the Oxford Research Encyclopedia, primarily defined by the popular press, the new woman represented a contemporary modern understanding of femininity, one that emphasized youth, visibility, and mobility, as well as a demand for greater freedom and independence. There are two definitions of social roles that women can either be categorized into. But today it doesn't matter because there shouldn't be any restrictions. In conclusion, the redefinition of a woman was redefined through the fin de siècle movement, meaning the end of the century, which gave a new meaning to women and a change.